The first time Megan Hale asked me to kiss her, I thought she was joking. She was not. And that one favor turned into the biggest mess of my entire life. My name is Ryan Coulter. I'm 28, I fix HVAC systems for a living, and up until that Friday night, my biggest problem was a client who kept complaining that his thermostat was haunted. Simple life. Boring life if you asked my sister. Predictable if you asked my mother. Perfect if you asked me. Megan didn't ask me anything. She just showed up. I was sitting on my parents' back porch, the one with the busted screen door that still hadn't been fixed since spring, nursing a beer and half listening to my sister Claire argue with someone on the phone inside. Claire and Megan had been best friends since middle school, which meant Megan had been a fixture in my life for almost as long as I could remember. She used to steal snacks out of our pantry. She used to beat me at video games and gloat about it for a week straight. She grew up, moved away for college, came back a few years ago sharper, quieter, and somehow more unreadable than she used to be. That night, she walked out onto the porch holding 2 beers, handed me one without asking if I wanted it, and sat down like she'd been invited. "Rough day?" I asked. "You have no idea," she said. I didn't push. Megan talked when Megan wanted to talk, and trying to drag it out of her early just made her clam up harder. So I let the silence sit there for a minute, crickets going, porch light buzzing overhead, until she finally sighed and turned toward me. "I need a favor," she said. "And it's going to sound insane. Everything you say sounds a little insane. This is worse." I raised an eyebrow and waited. She took a long pull from her beer, like she was stalling for courage, then set it down on the little table between us with more force than it needed. "There's a guy," she said. "There's always a guy." "Shut up. His name's Derek. We dated for 2 years. It ended badly, and now he's engaged to someone else, and he's having this whole engagement party thing next weekend, and I got invited because apparently his fiancée thinks it's mature to include the ex. That does sound like a nightmare. It gets worse. Derek's the one who told everyone I was, and I quote, still hung up on him. He's been telling people I can't move on. There's apparently a bet going around his friend group about whether I'll show up alone and pathetic." I sat up a little straighter. "A bet?" "A bet," she confirmed, jaw tight. $50 says I show up alone. $50 says I cry at some point. It's disgusting and normally I wouldn't care, but Claire told me and now I can't stop thinking about it. I could feel where this was going before she said it, but I let her get there on her own. "I need someone to go with me," Megan said. "Someone who can convincingly act like he's completely into me. Someone Derek would look at and feel something ugly and small about." "Okay," I said slowly. "So get a date." "I don't have a date, Ryan. I have work friends who'd ask too many questions and exes who'd make it weirder, and Claire suggested." She stopped herself. "Claire suggested me." Megan's face went a little red, which was rare for her. Megan didn't blush. Megan smirked and deflected and made everyone else feel exposed instead. Seeing her flustered made the whole conversation feel heavier than it should have. "She said you wouldn't make it weird," Megan said. "She said you're the only guy she knows who could fake a relationship for one night without turning it into something. High praise. Don't let it go to your head." I looked at her for a second. Really looked, the way you look at someone you've known your whole life but somehow never actually noticed. She had her hair down that night, which she almost never did, and there was a nervous energy under her usual sharp exterior that I wasn't used to seeing. "What exactly does this favor involve?" I asked. "Not much," she said quickly. "You come with me. We act like a couple. We hold hands, maybe. And if it comes up, if Derek gets close enough to make it convincing, we kiss." I nearly choked on my beer. "You want me to kiss you? I want you to pretend to kiss me in a way that looks real enough to shut down a room full of people who've spent 2 years assuming I'm still crying into a pillow over some guy who upgrades women like phone plans. That's a very specific request. I'm a very specific person." I laughed, and for a second the tension eased. Then she looked at me with something more serious under the joke. "I know it's a lot to ask," she said. "And I know it's weird because you're basically my brother by proximity. But I don't have anyone else I trust enough to do this without it becoming a whole thing." That word landed strange. Brother by proximity. I'd never thought of myself that way, not really, but hearing her say it out loud made something in my chest twist in a direction I didn't examine too closely. When's the party? I asked. Saturday. And you need an answer now? I need an answer before I lose my nerve and just don't go. I looked at her, at the way her fingers were picking at the label on her beer bottle, at the way she was trying so hard to look unbothered while clearly being very bothered. And I thought about Derek, a guy I'd met exactly twice and disliked both times, sitting at some overpriced venue collecting $50 bets on Megan's heartbreak like it was a party game. All right, I said. I'm in. Megan blinked like she hadn't actually expected me to say yes. Really? Really? But if we're doing this, we're doing it right. No half measures. If Derek's going to feel something, it's going to feel like something. She smiled then, a real one, the kind that used to show up when she was a teenager and hadn't learned yet to guard it. Thank you, she said. I mean it. Don't thank me yet, I said. You haven't seen how convincing I can be. I should have known right then that I was in trouble. I just didn't want to admit it yet. Saturday came faster than I wanted it to, which was strange, because normally a fake date with my sister's best friend to protect her from a room full of judgmental strangers would not have been something I was looking forward to. And yet there I was, standing in front of my bathroom mirror trying on 3 different shirts like I was preparing for a job interview instead of a favor. Megan picked me up in her car because, she said, arriving together made the story more believable. She was wearing a deep green dress that made her eyes look sharper than usual, hair curled loosely, lipstick just enough to notice. I opened the passenger door and got in before I let myself stare too long. You look nice, I said, which felt like an understatement the second it left my mouth. You look nervous, she said. I'm not nervous. You're gripping the seatbelt like it insulted your mother. I let go of the seatbelt. Better. Marginally. We drove in silence for a while, the kind that wasn't uncomfortable so much as loaded, both of us aware of what we were about to walk into and neither of us quite sure how to talk about it out loud. Rules, Megan said finally. We met 3 months ago. Mutual friend. You're in construction. HVAC. Close enough for a party. We hit it off fast. You think I'm hilarious and slightly terrifying. Accurate so far. And if Derek gets close, if he starts doing his thing where he tries to get under my skin, you step in. Not aggressively. Just enough. Define enough. She glanced at me sideways. You'll know it when you see it. The venue was one of those rooftop places downtown with string lights and a bar that charged too much for drinks that tasted like flavored water. The second we walked in, I felt eyes turn toward us, the specific kind of attention that comes from a room full of people who've been gossiping about someone for weeks and suddenly get to see the subject of that gossip in person. Megan slipped her hand into mine before I even offered it. Her fingers were cold, tight around mine in a way that told me exactly how nervous she actually was under all that composure. Showtime, she muttered. Derek found us within 10 minutes, which honestly impressed me with its efficiency. He was exactly the type I expected. Perfect haircut, watch too expensive for his personality, the kind of smile that men use when they think charm can substitute for decency. Megan, he said, arms half open like he expected a hug he wasn't going to get. You came. I was invited, Megan said, voice even. Derek's eyes moved to me, assessing, cataloging. And you brought someone. This is Ryan, Megan said, squeezing my hand. Ryan, Derek. I shook his hand with more force than strictly necessary. Congratulations on the engagement, I said, in a tone that made it very clear I didn't particularly care. Derek's smile flickered, just slightly. Thanks, man. So how long have you two been? 3 months, Megan said smoothly. Feels longer, I added, looking at her instead of him. In a good way. That earned me a look from Megan I hadn't expected, something warm and a little surprised, like she hadn't planned for me to actually be good at this. Derek recovered his smile and gestured toward the bar. Well, drinks are on the open tab for another hour. Enjoy. He walked off, but not before I caught him glancing back at Megan one more time, some calculation running behind his eyes that I didn't like the shape of. That went well, Megan said once he was out of earshot. He's exactly the kind of guy I expected. Worse, actually. You're seeing him on his best behavior. We got drinks. We mingled. Megan introduced me to a handful of people who all did the same double take when they heard my name, clearly having expected her to walk in alone or, worse, in tears. I watched her field questions about how we met and how serious it was, with an ease that made me wonder how many times she'd rehearsed this in her head before tonight. At one point, standing near the edge of the rooftop with the city lights spread out behind her, Megan let out a breath like she'd been holding it since we arrived. "You okay?" I asked. "I didn't think it would still feel like this," she admitted. "Being here. Seeing him with her. I thought I was past it." "You don't have to be past it tonight," I said. "You just have to survive it." She looked at me, something shifting behind her eyes. "You're better at this than I expected." "At what?" "Being charming." "At being kind about it instead of smug." I shrugged. "I've had practice not being smug. Comes with being the younger sibling." That got a real laugh out of her, the kind that carried, the kind that made a couple heads turn toward us with something like curiosity instead of judgment. For a moment, standing there with the wind pulling at her hair and her hands still loosely holding mine, it didn't feel like a favor anymore. It felt like something else entirely, something I wasn't ready to name. Then Derek's fiancée found us. Her name was Priya, and to her credit, she seemed nicer than Derek deserved. She smiled at Megan with something that looked almost like genuine warmth, though there was an edge to it too, the kind of politeness people use when they're testing the water. "I'm so glad you came," Priya said. "Derek always talks about you like you're some kind of legend." "That's one word for it," Megan said. Priya's eyes moved to me. "And you must be the boyfriend everyone's talking about." "That's me," I said. "The boyfriend." "You two seem really happy," Priya said, and something in the way she said it made it sound less like a compliment and more like she was fishing for confirmation of something Derek had told her. "We are," Megan said, and squeezed my hand again. Priya smiled, satisfied, and drifted off toward another group. Megan let out a long breath once she was gone. "That felt like a test," I said. "Everything tonight feels like a test." Derek reappeared 20 minutes later, right when Megan had finally started to relax. He sidled up beside her with a drink in hand and a look on his face that told me exactly what kind of comment was coming. "So how'd you two actually meet?" he asked, ignoring the fact that Megan had already told him. "Because I heard from someone that you've been single for like a year." Megan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "People say a lot of things." "I'm just saying," Derek said, voice dripping with the kind of casual cruelty that men like him mistake for wit. "It's convenient timing. Party invite goes out, suddenly there's a boyfriend." The words hit exactly where he wanted them to. I saw it land in Megan's shoulders, the way they dropped just slightly before she caught herself. "Derek," I said, keeping my voice level, "I get that you probably need this to be about you somehow, but Megan didn't invent a boyfriend for a party invite. I've been around for 3 months. Ask literally anyone in this city who's met us." Derek's smile thinned. "Just making conversation, man." "Make it somewhere else," I said, still calm, still even. "She's not interested in whatever point you're trying to score tonight." For a second, Derek looked like he wanted to push further. Then he glanced at Megan, at the way she was standing straighter now, chin lifted, and something in his expression flickered before he laughed it off like a joke that hadn't landed. "Relax," he said. "I was kidding." "Sure you were," Megan said. He wandered off toward the bar, and Megan let out a shaky breath the second he was gone. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I know. But you did it anyway." "Yeah." She looked at me for a long moment, something unreadable behind her eyes. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," I said, echoing my own words from the porch. "The night's not over." It was almost over, actually, close to the point where we could have made a graceful exit and called the whole thing a success. But Derek wasn't finished. He found us one more time near the edge of the rooftop, this time with a couple of his friends trailing behind him like an audience assembled for exactly this moment. "One more question," Derek said, that same false casual tone in his voice. "If you two are so happy, so real, Why haven't I seen you kiss all night? The question landed like a dare, aimed straight at Megan, and I understood immediately what he was doing. $50 said she'd show up alone. If that bet was already lost, there was clearly a new one running now, some quieter wager about whether the whole thing was fake. Megan's eyes flicked to me, something questioning and a little afraid underneath the composure. This was the part we'd talked about in the car. This was the moment she'd asked for. I didn't wait for her to answer him. I turned toward her instead, cupped her face gently, and kissed her. It was supposed to be quick. Convincing enough to shut Derek down, brief enough to stay inside the boundaries we'd agreed on. That was the plan. The plan didn't survive contact. Because the second my mouth met hers, Megan's hand came up to my jaw, not pulling away, not performing for the crowd around us, but pulling me closer, like something in her had stopped acting the moment it started. I forgot about Derek. I forgot about the bet, the party, the string lights, the city skyline behind her. There was just Megan, warm and real and kissing me back like she meant it, and for a few seconds that felt a lot longer than a few seconds, nothing else existed at all. When we finally broke apart, neither of us said anything right away. Derek had gone quiet. His friends had gone quiet. Somewhere behind us, I heard someone mutter, "Okay, that wasn't fake," and I couldn't have agreed more. Megan looked at me, breathless, eyes wide with something that looked a lot like the same confusion I felt in my own chest. "That was supposed to be for Derek," she said quietly. "I know," I said. "That didn't feel like it was for Derek." "I know that too." Derek cleared his throat behind us, clearly trying to recover some footing. "Well," he said, forcing a laugh. "Guess I stand corrected." Neither of us looked at him. Megan's eyes stayed on mine, searching for something, and I let her find it because I wasn't hiding it anymore. "We should go," she said softly. "Yeah," I agreed. "We should." We didn't talk in the elevator down. We didn't talk in the parking garage. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence, exactly. It was the kind of silence that comes after something shifts and neither person knows quite how to put it into words yet. Megan drove us both back toward her apartment instead of my place, and when she parked, she didn't get out right away. She just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead. "I need to say something," she said, "and I need you to not make it weird." "When have I ever made things weird?" "I'm serious, Ryan." I turned toward her. "Say it." She took a breath. That kiss wasn't part of the plan. Not really. I mean, it was, technically, but somewhere in the middle of it, I stopped thinking about Derek entirely. I stopped thinking about the bet, the party, any of it. I was just thinking about you. My chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with nerves and everything to do with hope. "I've been thinking about you for longer than tonight," I admitted. "I just didn't let myself notice it because you're Claire's best friend, and that always felt like a line I wasn't supposed to cross." "Lines can move," Megan said quietly. "Can they?" "I just moved one on a rooftop in front of 40 strangers and my ex-boyfriend's fiancé," she said. "I think we're past worrying about lines." I laughed, some of the tension breaking. "So what happens now?" Megan turned toward me fully, some of her old confidence returning, though softer now, more honest than the version she usually showed the world. "Now," she said, "you take me on an actual date. No bets. No Derek. No pretending. Just us." "Just us," she agreed. I leaned across the console and kissed her again, slower this time, no audience to convince, no favor to repay, just two people finally admitting what had been sitting between them for longer than either of us wanted to say out loud. Claire found out 2 days later, and her reaction was somewhere between horrified and delighted, which honestly felt about right given the circumstances. She called me the moment Megan told her, voice pitched somewhere between a scream and a laugh. "You kissed my best friend at a party to win a bet against her ex? That's a very reductive way to put it." "Ryan." "It turned into something real, Claire. I'm not going to apologize for that." There was a long pause on the line, and then Claire said, quieter, "Good. You'd better not." Megan and I took it slow after that, the way people do when they're aware they stumbled into something neither of them planned but both of them wanted. We went on real dates. No rehearsed backstory, no rooftop audience, No bet hanging over either of our heads. Just dinners that ran too long, walks that turned into hours, conversations that peeled back years of assuming we already knew everything there was to know about each other. Derek texted Megan once, a few weeks later, something about how he heard we were actually together now and hoped things were going well. Megan showed me the message, rolled her eyes, and deleted it without responding. She didn't need his approval anymore. She never really had. 6 months in, we told Claire's parents at a family dinner, half expecting some kind of awkward reaction given the years of history between us. Instead, my mother just looked at Megan, then at me, and said, finally, like she'd been waiting for us to catch up to something she'd already figured out a long time ago. A year after that rooftop, I asked Megan to marry me in the exact spot where the whole thing started, my parents' back porch, the busted screen door still not fixed because apparently some things are supposed to stay the same. She said yes before I even finished the question, laughing through tears, telling me I'd ruined a perfectly good proposal speech by rushing it. Now, when people ask how we got together, Megan tells them the short version. He kissed me to win a bet. I always add the rest. She kissed me back like she meant it. Both parts are true. Only one of them explains why we're still together. What would you have done if your best friend's sibling asked you to fake a relationship for one night, and the fake part stopped being fake the second it started? And have you ever done someone a favor that turned into the best thing that ever happened to you? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.